Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is Mayor Brandon King. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this free live telephone town hall community conversation. Tonight with me we have a special guest, Mr. Brian Zimmerman, the CEO of the Cleveland Metroparks, who is joining us to discuss the restarting of the negotiations to have the Metroparks completely restore and then manage our Forest Hills Park. As we all know, this is an ARPA-funded project. We will also give other important updates on other ARPA projects. Most of all, we would like to listen to you. Your ideas couldn't be more important to us, so I hope you'll be an active participant. While we wait briefly for a few more people to join us, please know that you can ask a question at any time simply by pressing 0 on your phone's keypad. We really want to hear from you, so I hope there'll be lots of questions. For those just joining us, this is Mayor Brandon King. Welcome to our free live telephone town hall community meeting. Tonight, CEO of the Metroparks, Mr. Brian Zimmerman, is joining us to discuss restarting the negotiations to have the Metroparks completely revitalized and then manage our Forest Hill Park. We will also talk about other ARPA-funded projects that we have operated here in the city. Most of all, I want to listen to you. Your ideas couldn't be more important to me, so I hope that you'll be an active participant. While we wait briefly for more people to join us, you can ask a question at any time simply by pressing 0 on your phone's keypad. One more time. While we wait briefly for a few more people to join us, please remember you can ask a question at any time simply by pressing 0 on your phone's keypad. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Mayor Brandon King. Welcome to our free live telephone town hall community conversation. One of our special guests tonight is Mr. Brian Zimmerman, the CEO of Cleveland Metroparks, to discuss restarting negotiations to have the Metroparks completely restore and then manage our Forest Hill Park. We will also discuss other ARPA-funded projects. Most of all, I would like to listen to you. Your ideas couldn't be more important, so I hope that you will be an active participant. While we wait briefly for a few more people to join us, you can ask a question at any time by simply pressing 0 on your phone's keypad.
Yeah, we're about to start, but I can see that folks are trying to.
It looks like we have a pretty good audience. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome. Welcome, East Cleveland. This is Mayor Brandon L. King. Welcome to our November 2023 Tele-Town Hall Community Conversation. In case you get disconnected or simply need to jump off the call and would like to return to this conversation, please take down this dial-in number, 855-756-7520. When prompted, the extension is 100227#. With me tonight, Tyler Allman, our lead coordinator for the ARPA-funded project, the Homeowner Grant and Stimulus. Our Chief of Staff, Mike Smedley. Longest serving councilman, our elder statesman, Councilman at Large Nathaniel Martin, newly elected Councilor of Ward 4 Terry Richardson, and as I mentioned earlier, the CEO of the Cleveland Metroparks, Mr. Brian Zimmerman. Our agenda for tonight is as follows. And please remember, tonight's meeting is being sponsored by the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, as it's better known. Many of you will know that through these funds, we were able to do the Homeowners Grant Program, Stimulus Program, the Senior Stimulus Program, and the Homeowners Stimulus Program. We were able to make investments, basically investments in ourselves. $2 million towards the partnership with the Cleveland Metroparks and the restoration of our Forest Hill Park. $4 million to the Cuyahoga County Land Reutilization Court. And we're anticipating putting another $1 million into high-speed fiber that we've been talking about for a number of years now. That high-speed fiber will help close the digital divide and bring high-speed internet access to East Cleveland residents. Affordable high-speed internet access. Another councilor-elect has just joined us. That is Mr. Timothy Austin, councilor-elect of Ward 2. Would now like to take just a brief moment to let the councilor-elects say hi and introduce themselves.
Well, good evening. This is Terry Richardson, Council-elect for Ward 4. I would like to thank you all for coming out and voting. My job is to ensure that I represent you well and to work closely with the administration on behalf of you all, to make our city a more prosperous, safe, and to give us the pride that we once had back in East Cleveland as being residents. Thank you all for your vote, and I look forward to serving you.
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Austin.
Greetings. This is Tim Austin. Hope all is well. I too am grateful for the support and look forward to appropriating and legislating in a way that would improve our quality of life. God bless you. God bless East Cleveland, and go Ward 2.
Awesome. Councilor at Large Nathaniel Martin, would you like to say hello?
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I need to say briefly that I'm looking forward to 2024. It's going to be bullish and a great year for the city of East Cleveland, 2024. With the new elected council people and the camaraderie I'm feeling from them right now, we're going to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Zimmerman, would you like to say hello?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. For those of you who are wondering how I'm here, Mayor King asked me to participate in an information session. I think there was so many hours spent with conversations relative to Forest Hill Park, the work with the McGregor Foundation. A lot of groundwork had been laid, and he asked if we would participate, re-engage in a conversation to really help take care of the asset Forest Hill Park. So I'm here merely from an information perspective.
Excellent. Excellent. We also have our Chief of Staff here.
Good evening, everybody. We're having some technical difficulty on two fronts, one of which is the number of calls that normally go out. We are having problems with getting those calls to go out. And number two is we're having problems with people connecting even with their dial-in numbers. So if you can hear me and if you get hung up on, please call back. Try several times to do so. And hopefully we'll have the technical difficulties worked out by that time.
This number is still good.
The number is still
I will
good.
give that number again. 855-756-7520. Extension 100227 pound. Let's dive into the agenda. We will start off with our updates on our ARPA projects. Turn it over to Tyler.
Hey, well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be speaking to all of you. So I am briefly going to give updates on the stats of both the stimulus and homeowners grant program. So as you all know, the stimulus program has been over for a few months, but we wanted to give you kind of like a status report on how that program went. So initially, the program was extended to seniors who were renters in the city. And then for the second round, the mayor extended the program to homeowners. So in that, we were able to, we gave out a total of 2,045 stimulus checks. I think that is an awesome number. Thank you to everyone who participated. So thank you to everyone who participated in this program, and I hope you enjoyed your check that you received. So also the program is closed. We are not accepting any more applications for the stimulus program. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Please call Renee at 681-2211 and she will give us your message and we'll give you a call. And for the homeowners grant, we accepted a total of 1,000 applications. I am happy to announce that we completed a total of 865 projects so far. We are almost at our 90% mark. We have a total of 135 projects left. So if you have not utilized your project yet, you do have until the end of 2024, so you have until December 31st of 2024 to utilize your grant.
No, to complete your project.
Utilize your grant and complete your project. Yes. So on December 31st of 2024, you cannot initiate your project. It has to be closed by that date. Okay. And if you are now interested in getting an asphalt or concrete driveway, just know that we did kind of miss our window for that this year because the plants are closing soon. But luckily next year is right around the corner. So once spring and summer hits of 2024, we can get those projects going again. But if you have any questions about the homeowners grant, again, please give Renee a call at 681-2211 and she will take your message and we will return your call. Thank you all for your patience and your participation in both programs, and have a great night.
Thank you, Tyler. Again, you can ask a question at any time simply by pressing 0 on your phone's keypad. We are going to try to hold questions until the end so that we can get through a lot of this information and we can hone in on a discussion regarding the Metroparks. I'm going to now bring in the Chief of Staff to talk about, give you a little background and history on the pursuit of getting the Forest Hill Park restorated and managed.
Also in your questions, good evening everyone. Mike Smedley, I'm sure most of you know me. About the questions, when we do take questions at the end of this, we'll take questions about the Metroparks first. We want to make the best use of Mr. Zimmerman's time. If there's any questions for him or if there's any questions about the Metroparks, we'll take those questions first, and then we can get him on his way, and we can take questions that's more localized to what's going on around your house, on your street, in your neighborhood, things that we need to pay attention to and help you get some assistance on. But speaking about the Metroparks, I've been here since 2010. I came here with Gary Norton when he ran for office in 2009, took over January 1st of 2010. There had been some discussion about the Metroparks at that time, early 2008, 2009, 2010, we began talking seriously about it as a community in council meetings. At the time, the council president was Dr. Joy Jordan. Her vice president was Chantel Lewis. And we couldn't decide locally whether or not it was a good idea to even approach the Cleveland Metroparks about the discussion, because many folks, including some on council, some in the leadership, believe that the Metroparks would pick the park up and remove it from the city of East Cleveland and put it into some other community, and that is where Forest Hills Park would reside, while others get an opportunity to access the park and East Clevelanders wouldn't. Yeah, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that was really part of the discussions back in 2010, 2011. We couldn't agree as a government to approach the Metroparks and request some discussions about their interest in managing Forest Hills Park. Those are the early discussions about this partnership. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor because the discussion really took steam in 2017, and he'll lay out the timeline for when those discussions began to get serious in terms of building a relationship with the Metroparks. Mayor?
Thank you. I'll try to make this quick. East Cleveland, I know many of you have heard this before, and I always have to thank Mr. Gordon Hay, part of the East Cleveland Parks Association, who has, the Park Association that is, taken over the management of Forest Hills Park since before I was an elected official. That's before 2014. When I became mayor in spring 2017, it was Mr. Gordon Hay who literally held my hand and took me out to meet with Brian Zimmerman and the Metroparks team to discuss their interest, if any, in taking a look at restoring and managing our park. We had a really good discussion, and from that discussion in 2018, we were able to secure grant funding from the McGregor Foundation to do a study on the park. That study was completed in 2019. In 2021, we had a very big meeting, a well-attended, interested parties at the East Cleveland Public Library, and that was the beginning of 2021. Some of those interested parties included not only East Cleveland city councilors, but people from the county, including our own councilor, Cheryl Stevens. In 2022, in the fall, legislation was passed unanimously by our city council to support our investment in the restoration and the management of the Forest Hill Park. Now, the result of passing this legislation was that the county of Cuyahoga Council, again through Cheryl Stevens, also put in $2 million. Another result of passing that legislation and investing $2 million in ourselves is that the Metroparks committed to putting in $6 million and committed to fundraising the remainder of the funds needed to completely restore the park. Also that year, our city's legal team, with the legal team of the Metroparks, began working on a draft of the lease agreement. And this spring of 2023, that draft was completed and submitted to City Council. Upon submitting that draft, and in the best interest of everyone's time and to appreciate everyone's time, we submitted it to council and then asked if council could submit questions in advance of bringing Mr. Zimmerman out to the city a third time. Remember, he was here for a council meeting. He was here for a mayor's meeting in which we talked about the Metroparks and about this partnership and what it would take. So we simply asked for questions to best utilize everyone's time, keeping in mind that if we write questions down, they can be answered in advance, and if there's any documents or anything that's needed, those could be provided before we go into a general discussion. We are all aware of the challenges that this government has faced this year and the ultimate debacle of the Metroparks discussion. However, tonight, we are here to look forward. I mentioned earlier how we have the two counselor-elects and the longest-serving counselor in this city together with the CEO of the Metroparks, Mr. Brian Zimmerman, here tonight to entertain, to discuss getting this conversation back on track. And with that, I would like to bring in Mr. Brian Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all of the attendees that are out there. What I think is really interesting, I think within the past week or so, I received, greater than 50, maybe 100 or 200 different letters from residents. And I think it was one of the things where when you read the heartfelt notes, the phone calls that we received, we owed ourselves to come back to the table. Certainly things have happened over time, but the evolution of process isn't always easy. And I think when you look at the intentions of the Metroparks, being a 106-year-old agency, leading the country as the best park district back-to-back in 5-year increments. You can only win it once every 5 years. We have won the national award for best managed park district in the country 5 times. And so when you look at, thank you. So when you look at what Metroparks brings to the table, to Mike's point, we are not moving the park. The park is staying in East Cleveland, and that to me is the jewel that it is. Having said that, the work by many, Nate Martin, County Councilwoman Sheriff Stevens, the mayor, we spend a tremendous amount of time really laying out the concepts of what this park could look like, to and include funding. $2 million should not be lost on this community from County Councilwoman Cheryl Stevens. She put her neck out to put money on the table, partnering with ARPA funds for and from the city of East Cleveland, knowing that you have many, many needs, knowing that the Metroparks would be bringing funds as well, and then continuing to fundraise. Having said that, the McGregor Foundation, a neighbor, longtime stewards of land and care of wonderful people, really stepped forward to lay the groundwork for what the park's basis. What were the points? What did we need to do? To include the fact that the park district came in, started doing some things, helping clean some things up, participating. We had countless meetings, countless workshops. I'd be remiss if I don't thank the Trust for Public Land and their participation. There was so much momentum to continue to move things forward. And so with no way to look back at what has happened, our only want is to look at how to move something forward. What does it look like? We believe answered many of the questions. Shaw High School reunion was one of the main things. We cleared the pathway for that. We are really here to be your neighborhood partner. We're here to bring what the Metroparks brings to the table, to include the fact that we have a park manager in training waiting. And so we really appreciate the fact that the mayor stayed in contact, kept the lines of communication open. Certainly sometimes we don't always end up exactly where we thought we were at the exact time, but then patience becomes great genius. And so when the residents spoke in the way that they did, in the fashion that they did, and the care that they did, brought us to the point where I am sitting here tonight to discuss the concept of restarting, continuing, furthering, approving, with the hope of getting an agreement for this historic park, the asset that East Cleveland knows. And keep in mind, the concepts, we weren't just bringing park maintenance, we were talking about the neighborhood, the feel, the building around it. Many conversations with the mayor of how does it look better for this community to really open up the asset that it is. So again, I'm here from an information standpoint. I'm here to merely help further the conversation when appropriate with the City of East Cleveland's leadership. And thank you for all the residents that responded in such a positive, overwhelmingly positive way. Your voice was heard.
Thank you. Thank you. We can open it up for questions now. Again, you can ask a question at any time by pushing 0 on your phone's keypad.
Before we get into that, there's some clarifying questions that some of us may have, and I have one for Mr. Zimmerman. Mr. Zimmerman, can you tell us a little bit about the comprehensiveness of the study that was done? Can you talk a little bit about that? What you discovered in the park?
Well, I can only tell you that it was, I don't know, what was it, 200 pages?
Yeah.
It might have been one of the most comprehensive studies, and it really, it laid the groundwork for some of the improvements to start and to begin. And, a well-used park becomes a safe park. We start talking about the assets of the pavilion and the trails. We talk about the A.D. Taylor plan. We think of what the original design functions of this were and what the intent was for the residents and the connection. It talked about the fencing and how that was uninviting, and so it really gave us some groundwork. It's voluminous. So to go through, it talks about the water lines, it talks about trees, it talks about the again, trails and signage and all of the different components. So it very clearly kind of laid out what I would call the assets and opportunities for the park. So certainly we've provided copies, but again, we have to thank the McGregor Foundation. When Cleveland Metroparks worked with the City of Cleveland on the lakefront transfer, we did the same exact process. We went through a very delineated, very deliberate process, and that started to lay the groundwork. The community meetings that we were hosting up until the point, those were starting to lay the groundwork, listening to the residents. And that to me is, again, as the mayor said, that's one of the most important things, listening. Safety is one of the questions. Safe parks are well-used parks. That's just a very, that should not be lost on any of us. We've talked about park patrols, we've talked about park safety. We have a fully commissioned 100-person police force. There were concepts to be able to add to that. Certainly we were looking at the maintenance facility, but there isn't a lack of places to spend money in the park.
So most people believe East Cleveland Forest Hills Park is what they see from Lee Road and Forest Hills Boulevard. It's 172 acres. Did this plan include all 172 acres, or did it just include what you see on Lee and Forest Hills Boulevard?
It's the City of East Cleveland's portion of the park. So it was a comprehensive look at. It looked at neighbors, it looked at boundaries, it looked at the school, it looked at the assets, it was the sum totality. The conversation did not include, at the time, Cleveland Heights. It was only East Cleveland, and that is the portion that Metroparks would be stepping into the shoes of East Cleveland to be able to maintain and leverage dollars for the park.
I remember earlier conversations about creating a new entrance into Forest Hills Park, a northern entrance, bringing the park closer to Euclid Avenue. I don't know if you want to expand on that thought. It was a wonderful thought. We approached the Ohio Department of Development to get funds for the demolition of the high-rise, the vacant high-rise across the street from the Huron Road Hospital site. Actually, in that entire discussion, and we talked to developers about it, developers wanted to renovate St. Philomena's old school to put housing to face the park if that high-rise come down. Can you talk about that?
All I can tell you is that most don't know this, but the Park District is almost on the verge of hitting 25,000 acres. I do spend time in the parks. I've spent time in East Cleveland. I've spent time in the park. That day I called the mayor and I said, "Mayor, are the owners of this group friendly of this building?" And he goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "Are they friendly?" "Well, they take a call. Do you remember that?" And he's like, I think they might. He goes, "What are you thinking about?" And I said, "Well, if we come in, this has got to go." I said, "Your asset needs to be seen from the main road. when you see, this is where I get excited and passionate. We literally have put time, energy, and resources behind taking that down. That needs to be one of the main components of being able to open up the view shed of this historic and wonderful park. That wasn't originally, that was never there. And so when you look at being able to pull that into your epicenter, that to me speaks to the volumes of what that park means to this community. And so it is not designed for development. It's literally designed as the linkage to your community, your city sidewalks, your streetscape. So we've worked very hard at that, and we did not want to lose ground on it, and we continue to push forward. That will be a historic move to take that down, work on the street, and pull that park through an environmental design that allows residents to see the park in a very, very different light. So it is not just about the park. Metroparks' interest just isn't about the park. It is about the community and how it sees itself in the park.
Well, that's a good segue into my next question. When green spaces like this is fully developed and it is properly managed and it goes through some kind of renovation, restoration, it's really an economic development project. Can you talk about how the Metroparks have managed parks that breathe new life in the neighborhood in which the parks exist?
There are countless stories of what they call it the proximate principle, and it's land closer to adjacent to high quality parks, churches, and schools, and a few other unique assets. Having said that, I think one of the best stories I can tell is Cleveland Metroparks back in 2013 took over Edgewater Park as part of the lakefront transfer. I will tell you, the truth is when I came here, I could not believe what it looked like. It was not polished. It was not presented in a fashion that I thought was commensurate with being a regional and national destination. Having said that, just south of the Shoreway and the railroad was a development that was the old Battery Park area. Having said that, there was almost very little levels of activity to create any level of economic development and resurgence in the area. Cleveland Metroparks moves in, takes over the park within 2 years, and now 10 years later, there isn't a parcel of land that's available. They've all sold out. Acacia Country Club, again in Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst, it was long thought that the whole park was going to be developed. The lots were not selling. Cleveland Metroparks comes over. Everything has been sold. So what I can tell you is that assets that are a proven entity will continue to help re-anchor the neighborhoods. Our work with Gus Frangos, the land bank, this city is working diligently with them on new housing stock and opportunities. If I were a developer, I'd be looking in East Cleveland near the park. I can just tell you, I think the asset that park will become, if we can get this through in the fashion that we believe, it will become a true asset for this region. It will help the economics. It's going to help residents. It's going to help abandoned properties. I see some of the comments about, pride of ownership, and when you see things that are being dumped, that's not what we are. We are here to help turn that tide the other way. Yes, I know streets. Yes, I know roads. I know a lot of these things, but the reality is we have to work together. We have to figure out how to move this ball forward, and now is the time.
So I don't want the community just to think that this is some opportunity for developers to come in and make some money, build some stuff, put some business in, and build some commerce and make money and then go about their merry way. So there is a health aspect of healthy parks. Can you speak a little bit about the health aspect of a community when they have a healthy, well-managed park?
It's interesting that a lot of the data points back to people that use a park facility 2 to 3 times per week see about $150 less per year annum on their health care because they're out, they're active. So when we talk about diabetes, we talk about heart disease, we talk about all of those things. Parks that are connected and safe. We also know that a lot of the users have a higher cortisol level. They have a higher guest experience, and so I think to your point, there's a balance in pride of ownership. You want owner-occupied homes. You want businesses that are producing and not pillaging. And so I think when you look at this opportunity to re-anchor an asset that has the opportunity to do some of those things, it has been proven that it will work for this economy. The Cleveland Metroparks knows that we've monetized per year, $873 million worth of economic benefit back to this region. How and why do we know that? 1, travel and tourism dollars. 2, the property values. 3, stormwater runoff. 4, carbon sequestration. 5, health insurance and wellness credits. So the list really goes on of the benefits of it. And it's not to say that East Cleveland hadn't, it's just now we have an opportunity to look in a different way.
Okay. Most people believe, well, let me rephrase that. Most people may not know what a partnership between a community and the Metroparks is in terms of their access to the park. You've heard some folks around this community who don't have, the knowledge base to understand what that relationship means. Does that limit residents' access to the park? Can you talk about partnering? Because I know that the Metroparks have recently entered into agreements to manage other parks. How did that agreement impact local residents' access to the park?
Well, it only increased it. I mean, when you look at what the lakefront transfer did, and we'll take a step back. If you look at the history of Metroparks and its role in partnering, Garfield Park Reservation came in the 80s. We have now put $12 million back into the park, renovating and restoring a lot of different components. It has only increased. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Trees for Threes. So they've planted almost 12,000 plus trees. And so that's from health benefit, from carbon sequestration, climate control, climate resilience. All those things matter. Then we look at Brookside as another example. Brookside attendance only increased. When we look at the lakefront. So there are many examples of partnerships. So essentially the city of East Cleveland still owns its portion. We come in as the long-term manager of the park. And so when we look at the opportunities, the park, we believe, will only grow in people using the park. There is no gate, there is no turnstile, none of those things exist. The goal, along Southern roads where the fences are, the goal is to take that down to say, you are welcome here, you are all welcome here. So I think we have an opportunity to change that narrative in a very different way.
I should have started off with this point and give you some opportunity to expand on this thought. Although the mayor, as a matter of fact, I was a part of the meeting too, in your office to talk about building this relationship, but you have been participating in park maintenance in East Cleveland for quite some time. And most people don't know the investment that the Cleveland Metroparks has made into Forest Hills Park, even without these discussions taking place. You mind talking about that a bit?
I can only say Gordon Hay is a salesman, and
Yes,
he has. My arm has not broken, but when you look at what he, as an individual, and the Forest Hill Park Association, the members have given the residents the opportunity to help prop up certain components, McGregor, parking, playgrounds. That work we've been able to do candidly, very quietly, with no fanfare, trees and other things, signs. We have been your partner. We have been there. We've already been there, and most of you never knew it. And we never asked for anything. We only wanted to help. And I can tell you, the things that have happened in the past, that was impinging on my reputation, and I did not appreciate the things that did happen, because it became in a personal fashion. All those things aside, we are here for the residents of East Cleveland. We are for the residents that wrote the letters. We are there for the residents that wanted the information as to what was really happening. And so when you look at that, my tenure's been here 13 years. We've been there 13 plus years working in the park very quietly for the residents already. So to be able to further the opportunity, I think Gordon wants to retire. I think he wants to go do something else. I'm kidding. I don't think he will ever retire. But my point is that, when you have an individual like that that's been so caring and passionate for so many years, it's hard not to feed off the energy and want to give something back. And so I think there are ways and components and possibilities to be able to move forward. And again, this is really, we're only talking about the East Cleveland portion.
Which includes both sides of Forest Hills Boulevard. I just want people to understand that Forest Hills Park goes beyond Lee Road and Forest Hills Boulevard. It crosses Forest Hill Boulevard and it reaches up to Superior Road. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about encompassing all of that into this agreement for renovation, restoration of this park. I see on the board we have one question, and we about the Metroparks, and then we'll get into other questions. Actually, there's a couple of other questions. We want to start with the questions about Metroparks, and we can best use Mr. Zimmerman's time.
Any other questions in the room?
I answered the one, so.
Yes.
Sure did.
Yes.
I ask a question.
Councilman Martin, you have a question?
Yeah. Yesterday, you mentioned park. What's the name of that park?
The park people that were at the meeting.
Yeah,
I don't know the name.
we had a meeting yesterday.
The
and we
organization
discussed
that-
Metro.
I don't know the name.
Trust for Public Land.
Trust for
Trust
Public
for
Land.
Public
Sean
Land.
Terry's group. Mhm.
Yes.
And one issue came up with safety. So can you elaborate a bit about safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are park police.
Okay.
They have been a commissioned law enforcement agency for over 100 years. And so we utilize bikes, we walk, we use motorcycles, we use cars, we use horses, we use all the different components. Our goal is to really provide a space where people are enjoying the park in the fashion and the manner that it was bestowed upon the residents of East Cleveland. And so the other components that get added to it, layered on, are trail ambassadors. We have a volunteer base of north of 6,000 volunteers, and the volunteers spend time walking the trails and answering questions. They wear blue outfits and they say, "We are a trail monitor. Do you have questions? Do you have concerns?" And so we have all of those. We have a non-emergency number. We are part of the Chagrin Valley Dispatch, so we are being dispatched with, I believe, 30 other municipalities, and so we will have a presence in this particular area. So citizens always help, trail ambassadors always help, and our park police will help.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Councilor Lex, any questions?
Concerns.
I don't have a concern, but I do have, a couple of notes. First, I want to say to Mr. Zimmerman, thank you very much for caring, for coming over with a whole bunch of good information. And I noticed you didn't have not one document in front of you, so that evidently came from your heart.
I care. I genuinely, if I didn't, I wouldn't have come tonight.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And for that, again, I want to say thank you. What I would like to see is if you have any potential renderings, some of your dreams. As we start the process of taking a look at Forest Hill Park future, I would like to see if we can kind of get some of those renderings, some of those dreams, some of those things that you can bring into this footprint, that you may have used in other municipalities to help us. And I also want to ask the question about some of our smaller parks, things that we have made some effort to take care of, and want to see if you can help us complement those smaller areas as well. And again, thank you very much for all you bring, and I appreciate you tremendously. That's all I have.
So I'll answer the question at the highest level first. It is never our park district's intent to come in with an overarching theme without working with the residents.
Amen.
So we do not come in and say this is what will happen. That's why all the community meetings we're going with the partnership with Trust for Public Land, our community engagement. Kelly Kaufman spent many time in the park underneath tents. Having said that, I really want to focus this community on what A.D. Taylor did. He was one of the preeminent park architects of his time. The asset of this park is the trails. It is the trails, it is the trail network, it is the trees, it is the opportunity to reconnect. This world where all of us, I'm looking at the table, have a phone sitting or multiple phones. Park and recreation is a time to recreate yourself in the natural realm. It is not about over-programming. It is not about over-stimulating. It is about decompressing and forest bathing and being part of that. So having said that, we're very cautious to come in with any level of anything until the residents give us an idea of what this park should look like. We also know that A.D. Taylor laid out a very, very well thought out plan for this park, and how should that be redone. I also do want to be very direct. We are here for Forest Hill Park. We are a regional park system. We operate parks in 5 counties surrounding Cuyahoga County. We do not try to work into smaller parks. We do offer assistance through technical support, but we do not get at that level. Our goal is to build this, and then hopefully it spurs off of that. So we're also we have 60 municipalities in Cuyahoga County alone, and so we are that regional system with large acres of land. Our ultimate goal is always to connect all of those. We talk about the 880 plan, 888. Whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old, you should have an 8-minute walk to a high quality park. So there is concepts like that out there, but they do not all happen overnight. This region is truly blessed with Cuyahoga County Greenway Plan. Cuyahoga County Greenway Plan was part of the original meetings. Mary Serby's group, why that is so strategically important, because it does not leave any community out. Communities were all planned in, all 59 municipalities were planned in how to connect this region. No community was left behind. We were probably one of the only regions in the United States that is mapped out as well. NOACA, Northeast Ohio, our coordinating agency under Grace Galucci's leadership, they provide funding. When you have a plan, it's easier to fund the plan. And we talk about ready now, ready in the future. Those concepts then help delineate how to bring connections to our waterfront, to when you look at Euclid is one of the main corridors of this entire county. It runs as far as the eye can see. So when you start to look at those assets, we talk about in 5 and 10 year increments. Does the road get rebuilt? Does it go into a road diet? Does it go into a midway? So many unique things can happen, but we are here right now for Forest Hill Park.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Councilor Richardson, you got a question or?
No question, just very interesting. Yes, I do. Some of the things in the Forest Hills Park are historical, like the bowling. Will we keep that?
I can only tell you the lawn bowling. So most will not know this, but I help maintain a lot of lawn bowling. I personally enjoy it. However, I don't see many people utilize it anymore. And so, again, it is not what Brian Zimmerman wants. It's what the community wants, what people will use. And so parks evolve over time. And so, again, we are talking specifically about Metroparks' involvement in the East Cleveland portion. Cheryl Stevens designated $2 million. There is $2 million worth of ARPA funds that the city of East Cleveland is dedicated. We have dedicated $2 million, and we hope to raise more money to help rebuild those things as they go. Again, having said that, the community's involvement, Trust for Public Land public meetings, our public meetings will help evolve that based on what the McGregor plan and the A.D. Taylor plan, which was the original park plan. And that has been my guidepost, because I love history and I love the way some of these parks were laid out. They were laid out so true and pure.
Okay, excellent. We're gonna take our first call. We have Betty Sparkman. Miss Sparkman?
Hi. I had a question, but it seems like my question has been answered. I was thinking if the management was going to include just the East Cleveland side, or was it going to include Forest Hill, meaning the Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland?
Oh, okay. Yeah, just the East Cleveland side. We can't negotiate for Cleveland Heights.
Well, I think it's the concepts of safety by design, adding lights, trimming trees, taking out blind spots. All of those things matter. You know what happens over time? A tree in the right spot is just a beautiful thing, but the tree, and some of these corners in Vegas, they matter. And so, taking a look at how those things, will go over time, I think will be important. When we talk about, the utilization, we talk about events. We have what we call a special events division. We have a group that handles our permits for all 25,000 acres, all reservable picnic areas. All of those things will that's what we do. And so there is a number. We have served Cuyahoga County for 106 years. We have thousands of permits go through. We have protected, again, the Shaw event. And residents from East Cleveland, all they have to do is call in, get their permit, and they can go use the pavilion or however it's set up. We have some that are reservables for periods of time, and we have others that are shared use facilities. Shared meaning anybody can come. It's a gathering spot for a barbecue, whatever it happens to be. So that is how we run it. It is a very uniform thing and is run under one of our divisions.
Okay. Tanya, we have a question from Tanya. Tanya? Tanya, can you turn down your TV?
Yeah.
Can you turn your TV down?
Actually, I had, good evening. Now, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Tanya.
I had submitted the question earlier, and part of it was answered about being able to reserve the use of the park for events. As it stands now, used to be with Parks and Recreation, you would have to reserve it, pay a fee, and then be able to use the park. So that's been answered. And I was just wondering how much of a part we will play in the how the park is going to be operated, and I think you guys pretty much touched on that too.
Okay.
So how can we be assured that this can go through if there's any opposition from council? I mean, what can we do as residents?
Well, we really don't want to get into the politics of things, Tanya, but it's all about ensuring that, you have the representation that you want, and those who represent you represent the issues that's important to you. I believe the individuals in this room, they obviously support this effort, or they wouldn't be sitting here. And we just need to make sure that any representative of the community, every representative of this community, represents the interests of the residents. That's the best way I can put it, to stay out of trouble. But we do have folks in this room who are like-minded on this issue. Can we move to a question from Mr. Bragg, Marvin Bragg? Mr. Bragg, you there?
Yes, I am. I had a statement more so than anything else. I was telling the young lady I'm a golfer, and I have seen what the Metroparks have done to golf courses, and it's a thing of beauty. We need not yield on this particular situation. We need to go forward because we could have something very special.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr.
Thank
Bragg.
you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Bragg.
We are committed to that.
Wanda Jacobs. Are you there? Wanda? Wanda.
I'll just answer her question.
Okay.
The ownership of the park. East Cleveland owns Forest Hill Park. Cleveland Metroparks would, if negotiated and approved, take over a lease for 50 years. That's what we had agreed upon,
Yes.
with a renewable term. What would also then happen is that Metroparks is the clearinghouse. We are the clearinghouse for all things Forest Hill Park. You have a question about a blade of grass that you don't like, you call Cleveland Metroparks. You want to rent a pavilion, you call Cleveland Metroparks. You have a police issue, you call Cleveland Metroparks. It will be under the management of Cleveland Metroparks. So we will have then more than 25,000 acres under management. Again, we are the #1 park district in the country. This is what we do. This is what we do every day.
Management does not mean ownership. Actually, in the covenants, with the document that Rockefeller, when he conveyed the park to East Cleveland, it says that it must stay within the possession of the city of East Cleveland. So no one's trying to violate that.
Absolutely.
That's not the intent of this relationship. As you know, and everyone knows, that had it not been for the East Cleveland Parks Association, the park wouldn't be in the decent condition that it is.
That's right.
We all know that to be true. You all have to remember this town had 40,000 people in it. You had more than 20,000 people who were employed, meaning that they were bringing in tax dollars in order to fund the operation of the city. Today we have about 15,000, and we have about 4,000 people who are actually employed. There are more retired people in the community. They paid their dues. They funded this community for decades. This is now an opportunity. This partnership is now an opportunity for them to enjoy an asset in their retirement age, where they can enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the green space in a well-managed park. And that's what they used to, because they were the ones who funded the operations back in the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s. Let's move to Mr. Dupree. James, are you there? James, Mr. Dupree.
Yes,
How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
You have a question?
My question is, what about the lighting in the roads going to the park? What they gonna do with those?
So,
You know, you need to have some safe way getting to the park and lighting, and going up Forest Hills Boulevard, there's no lights and truck holes and everything else.
so that's a very good question. That's a very good question, and I don't want to get into a situation where there's some adversarial things to be said, but there's an entire lighting project that has been planned and is awaiting approval by our city council that will fully restore lighting on Forest Hills Boulevard with underground wiring and historic decorative lighting that lights the road and the sidewalk. You know, we have it designed by our engineering firm, OHM. We have to award it. The administration can't award contracts over $50,000. That's an action of council, and it is in their purview. Now, the restoration of Forest Hills Park is an economic development project, as well as a green space public health project. But from the economic development perspective, that allows us to raise even more grant funding so that we can support the areas around the park. Today, we have about $60 million in grant funding from resurfacing roads, Hayden included, to underground infrastructure work. And again, all of that stuff is in the purview of council, because council has to accept these grants that we get. So yes, we know that the surrounding areas of the park needs to be addressed. We know that this is an economic development project. We know when there is an economic development project, it makes it easier for municipalities to raise grant funding to support such a significant project as the restoration of Forest Hill Park. So if we get that done, I have no doubt that we're going to be able to raise funds, because we've already raised about $60 million, and that's $60 million that is sitting there today waiting to be accepted by the legislative branch of the government.
Before we go to our next question, let me add to that. So the lights that you mentioned are in our possession. Those lights took us maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and full of resident input in the designing of these historic lights. And over the last couple of years, we have, around this time of the year, and you will see it within the next couple of days, we will have Forest Hill Boulevard restriped. And we will have the potholes patched as best we can to make the road traversable.
But getting resources, and you know how East Cleveland does it, there's no question about it, everybody knows. We raise grant funding for resurfacing. We raise grant funding for water and sewer. We raise grant funding for those major projects, and if we begin this relationship with the Cleveland Metroparks, I believe 100% we can raise the grant funding to resurface
Absolutely.
Forest Hills Park, because it only adds to the economic development advantages of having a
Absolutely.
restored green space.
Absolutely.
Let's move to Dante. Dante, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir. You have a
How
question?
you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm good. So, one for the mayor, wanted to know what is the status of the ARPA funds for the park restoration, and then for Mr. Zimmerman, well, one, thank you for getting the letters for the love of Forest Hill. What are ways that we as residents can continue being proactive with both the city and Metroparks to get to this lease agreement for the restoration and management? What are ways that you would help ensure community voice?
Start with you, Mayor, and the status of the
Yes,
Metroparks
so
fund.
thank you for that question. Two answers to that question. First, the awarded funds, again, awarded unanimously by City Council, are still in and always have been in the city's possession. Funds never left the city.
Those funds are still available. When we get to a signed lease agreement, we will transfer those funds over so that they can begin utilizing them for the benefit of restoring the park. The second part of that question is, what can residents do? Residents can ensure, from a park perspective, from a municipal perspective, I can only speak on it. Mr. Zimmerman may have some thoughts about from partnership perspective, but from our perspective, continue to support your local representatives who represent your interest. This is one of your interests, and it is the main interest of this community. And I believe that we have 3 elected officials here, 3 of the 5, that it takes in order to get a lease agreement negotiations back on track and accepted by City Council. But most importantly, we still have to do community engagement.
Absolutely.
In order to understand the needs of the community that need to be captured in this agreement to ensure that this represents the interests of the community in its entirety. We are only the administrators of this agreement. We are not the dictators of what goes into such an agreement that will last for half a century and that will encompass so much of geography of the city of East Cleveland. Mr. Zimmerman, you have anything to add to that?
I have a question. Can you clear up the 99-year lease? Can you explain that so that the people can understand why contracts are written that way?
Yeah, I think answering the first question first was really about, parks should never be politicized. They are here for the residents. They're here for the enjoyment, the betterment of the community. So number one. Number two, stay active and stay informed and ask questions. Participate in the community meetings if we're able to get this back on track. This one in particular was negotiated not as the city of Cleveland was with 99. It was negotiated with 50. And that was at the request of the mayor, and I believe council did weigh in and just said we feel comfortable. We said because we've been here 106 years, that's a half a century, and so we believe the structure that was put forth, which was agreed upon by the city of Cleveland for 5+ leases to protect their residents in the fashion. We believe that it did the same for the residents of East Cleveland. We believe that the framework of that was very well thought out. It did take a long time to craft. It did weigh in almost every component. When questions were asked, they were answered. Shaw High School reunion, that was one that was protected. We agreed to it. immediately. We wanted that. So the point is that we believe that we have a very good structure that we would like to see move forward.
Excellent. It sounds like the lease is not unlike other leases that you've signed with other municipalities for management of their parks, understanding the local environment and what the residents want. Now, going in, being a Cardinal, and I'm looking across at other Cardinals, we knew going in that would have to be in the lease, and it is.
Excellent. Well, let's take our last question on the Metro Park so that we can at least send Mr. Zimmerman home to get a late dinner. Barb, are you there? Barb, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead with your question, Barb.
My question is, if we take this, if we do this, if we let the Metro Park take this project, how long does that project take to complete?
Mr. Zimmerman, that's a good question for you, I suspect.
Rome was not built in a day. The park is historic in nature. We want to be respective of any, architectural themes. And so all I can say is that when a plan from the community is with the community input is put forth, we will then start to put timelines on it. And so not knowing when we would start, not knowing what it is looking at, all those, I can't say, because I like definitive, but there's nothing that I can say that's definitive yet. And so that's all I can say.
I'm sorry, we got one more. Parsa, we got one more question on the Metro Parks. Just popped in. Parsa, are you there? Or did you leave? Parsa?
Wondering about the, you've already answered the question about the lighting, but there used to be a great guy who would put the Dutch who would put the lighting on the little island in the middle of the lake. Just wondering about that, and also tennis courts.
I can only speak again to, are they used by the school? Are they used by residents? Some sports become cyclical. Bowling alleys for years when I was a kid, that's what you did. Bowling alleys ebb and flow. Roller rinks have ebbed and flowed. Golf, honestly, ebbed and flowed. The Tiger Woods area to moving. We bought our 9th golf course in Ironwood, and you can't get a tee time. So things do ebb and flow. We would have to anticipate. Right now, I believe the condition of the tennis courts would be graded as poor. So the likely removal and a rebuild, potentially, if that's what the community wanted. I don't know that they need as many as that are there. I've been by many times and not seen anybody use them. So again, I don't have a preconceived notion. I think the community will help dictate. But these nature-based playgrounds have been so well received because they create collaboration, they create conversation among our young children. They're not on their phones, they have to talk to others, they have to interact with others. So all I can say is that I think there are some themes and things that can happen over time. But again, this will be part of the wonderful process where one of the callers asked about participation. Be present in your future of your best asset.
Absolutely.
Forest Hill Park. So again, I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank the new counselors, the continued support of the mayor. Again, parks are not to be politicized. They are here for the residents.
They'll be here long after we're gone.
Yeah, long after we're gone.
Mr. Zimmerman, thank you for coming in. Thank you for giving us some very comprehensive, deep, thought-out answers to some of the most pressing questions that residents have had regarding our relationship with the Cleveland Metroparks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Now,